And welcome back to Cape Town, and of course standing in front of the National Assembly, and this is of course where the State of the Nation 2020 will be happening tonight. President Cyril Ramaphosa expected to deliver that address, and as promised earlier, we will be speaking to all the political parties, at least as many of them as we can squeeze in, to get their previews and also their expectations for SONA 2020. And we start of course with the African National Congress, the majority party in Parliament. And I'm joined by the Chief Whip, Mayor Pemi Majordina. Thanks so much for coming through this morning. This SONA, of course, happening at a time where we're told it cannot be business as usual. So from the African National Congress's perspective, what do you expect to hear in tonight's SONA address?
Thank you very much, Sakina, and viewers at home. As ANC, we expect the President to give a progress report in terms of growing the economy. You'll remember that the President was hosting several investment conferences, and now it is that time to give us a progress report. Secondly, how is the President going to deal with the high issue of unemployment that is raised, that is on a crisis stage? And we are confident that for the mere fact that the National Youth Service is still in place, the issue of experience to young people when they are getting job has been scrapped. We have hope that the President will bring us something better to say what is the target, how do we go forward. Thirdly, the issue of SOEs. I must state that not all SOEs are bad. They are doing very well, the SONA, and you can name them. The two major ones, ESCOM and SAA. We are very famous ANC on SAA, that SAA must fly our skies. SAA must be properly managed. SAA must be rescued from what it is today. SAA must be financially stable, as well as ESCOM. If ESCOM is on and off, that affects our economy. But also we're looking forward to the President telling the country about the plans to deal with drought, how to assist areas that are affected by drought, especially the rural areas as well as the farming community. The issue of crime and corruption. Corruption, we appreciate the processes at SONA Commission, but it is high time now that let those that are implicated get arrested and be taken to jail, because South Africans need that. If needs be that we need a special courts and a task team that is going to deal with that we will appreciate as the ANC.
I think one of the difficulties for the broader South African public is the conflicting messages coming out of the African National Congress. You stand here before me this morning and you say the ANC is clear on its position on SOEs, on SAA, for example. But then you have your very own chairperson, Gwede Mantashe, coming out and say, privatize this thing. We see the Minister of Finance at some point saying, well, you know, this is perhaps a vanity project. So how do you mean the ANC is clear about its position?
There is a structure called the National Executive Committee, which is the highest decision-making body between conferences, and there is a clear stand on that, is what I'm saying. To our two ministers, they might be speaking their own opinion because they are closer to those companies. Be that as may, it does not say the ANC does not support SAA. We support SAA until further notice. Maybe there is something that they know that we are not aware of. I still stand by what the NEC and the Khotla has resolved on saying support SAA. You cannot allow other people to come and fly our skies when we have our own career.
So what is the plan then? Because we see the business rescue practitioners, there's concerns there that there's no consultation, you know, and we look into the roles of what they're supposed to do. But the fact of the matter is, when Parliament, when Treasury is late in releasing funds that they were meant to give to the business rescue practitioners to turn around that situation at SAA, what is the public supposed to make of that?
The rescue plan is supposed to work in consultation with government. I think that those are just small pros and cons that must be dealt with. But I think together we can move forward in rescuing SAA. I have not lost hope on SAA, but SAA just needs proper management, it needs proper intervention by government. But it cannot be an arrangement that cannot have time frames. I think what we want now is clear time frames to turn around the situation.
Mema Jodina, I started off by saying it cannot be business as usual. The story you're telling me now, and I respectfully call it a story, we've heard before. We've heard that people need to be arrested, but it doesn't seem to be happening. So why should South Africans trust what you're saying now and not accept it as just another platitude from the African National Congress?
Remember, there was no SONA Commission. There were no people that were going out there to go and state their cases. Now they are going there day in and day out. And therefore, after that, there must be a clear consequence of the SONA Commission and the people appearing. And in the past, we never had that. So that is why I'm saying what we need now, after all these people that have gone there, we must have a clear plan to say, how do they get prosecuted? So in the past, we never had that. And I think South Africans must also note that there is a progress in terms of calling whoever to come in front of SONA Commission.
And you said Eskom as well, which has been an albatross around our collective South African neck. What needs to be done about Eskom? What is the ANC's position?
ANC position was that let Eskom be assisted as well, like we are doing in SAA, because Eskom is unable to deliver on its mandate. Notwithstanding the old infrastructure, we are saying let there be clear interventions as to say, in terms of infrastructure, how is it going to be assisted? Because this on and off, it does not assist us as a country. It is our concern as the ANC as well, but we are saying let's allow those who have been assigned with that task. When the minister is doing the policy speech debate, it will also unpack the rollout plan on Eskom.
So what is the African National Congress doing about these people you say need to be arrested and the people who are responsible for plunging these state-owned entities into this dire mess that they are in at the moment? Because by and large, this is a mess created by the African National Congress through its deployees, and through a process that allowed for things to deteriorate.
Those people that are implicated, some of them are members of the ANC. It's not ANC. ANC is an organization, and ANC is not corrupt by its nature and its character. So let's separate ANC from the individuals. That is why individuals are going there not as ANC. They are going there on their own to account on their deeds. And as I said earlier on, that if we could fast track the issue of them being prosecuted, that's the only way to do, because at the moment, the presumption of innocence until proven guilty is what is ruling South Africa, and we must respect that.
Final question. The EFF says they want Pravin Gordhan dismissed. They will disrupt these proceedings if he's here. They will disrupt these proceedings if FW de Klerk attends tonight. So that's pretty much on the cards. What is the ANC's response to that?
We're not going to accept anarchy. If people are raising genuine issues, they know which offices to approach. They must have gone to the president. It's not for the first time that they want to interrupt whenever there is Honorable Pravin Gordhan. And we are saying Parliament is not for that. State of the Nation address is for the president to speak to the nation, not for anarchists to come and disrupt. So the presiding officers must just keep the decorum of the House and act accordingly.
Ms. Pemi Majodina, ANC Chief Whip, thanks for your time. As we now move on to the next guest, and that would be the leader of the Democratic Alliance, John Steenhuisen, will be joining me to give us their perspective and what their expectations are for the State of the Nation Address 2020. Mr. Steenhuisen, thanks so much for speaking to us this morning. So first off, your expectations for tonight?
Well, we expect bold, deep reforms. Anything short of that is simply not going to wash. The president needs to deal with some major crises that are confronting him, and kicking the can down the road, as we've seen in the last two SONAs, isn't going to resolve the problem. We saw what happened with Eskom, we've seen what's happened to SAA, we've seen what's happened to unemployment, and we've seen what's happened to the economy when you don't deal decisively with the right interventions to get the right things done. So anything short of that is going to, I think, be a fail for the president this evening, but he's got to confront Eskom this evening. It's a ticking time bomb on the balance sheet of South Africa. It's diverting a huge amount of money away from the social spend in South Africa as we bail out a failing state-owned entity. We've got to ensure that he's got a plan to fix the economy and to create jobs and to relax labour laws, to unleash a jobs revolution in the country, to send out a very clear message around expropriation without compensation, which the current manifestations are a major deterrent to international investors and the uncertainty in our economy for the investment that we need to create the jobs here. And then, of course, we've got to overhaul our education system, and we've got to find a way to be able to keep our communities safe, and then, most importantly, focus on basic service delivery. In a tour I've just done around the country for the last 2 weeks, there are large communities living without access to water, to sanitation, to electricity in their homes. And this is simply not good enough 20-something years after democracy in South Africa. We need to have a reset in terms of basic services in the country and to be able to bring people dignity in those communities that are still left out on the periphery.
Speaking of people's dignity, I couldn't help but notice driving through Cape Town last night, and I thought, okay, maybe this is my perception, but I actually made it my business to ask around. It seems like there are more homeless people on the streets of Cape Town. I don't know if you've noticed it. Is that something that has caught your eye as well?
Well, homelessness is an international problem. World cities all struggle with homelessness. New York, Geneva, London, they all have a problem with homelessness, and it's because the economy is growing here and there are opportunities in the city of Cape Town that it becomes an attractive destination for people who are looking for a way up. And I think the fact that homeless people are congregating to Cape Town shows just how bad things are out there. We've got some great programs here within the city. We have social workers that are walking the streets, interviewing those individuals where there are substance abuse problems, trying to get them into programs. We're encouraging through private partnerships with NGOs a way for the citizens to be able to buy tickets, booklets of tickets. Instead of giving money, you're able to give a ticket that entitles a person to a night in the shelter with a hot meal and a nice warm shower. And we've got to deal with this. But, you know, there is a general economic decay in South Africa, and homelessness is one symptom of the broader economic malaise that the country finds itself in. When you've got 10.4 million people unemployed, when you've got a jobs bloodbath on your hands because of the failed policies of this government, you're going to see more and more people being driven into those situations. We need to make interventions to avoid that situation and to get people out of poverty and into opportunity. And that's going to require a bold reform agenda, not the timidity that we've seen of the president of late.
Well, it would seem as though we might be here a long time tonight, because as we've seen in previous SONAs, when there have been disruptions, we've been here until midnight at some point. So there's again a threat of disruption tonight. What are your views on that?
Well, I don't think you serve the people of South Africa by disrupting the people's house, because you're essentially disrupting the people's business. But I think what you see as a party that's looking desperately for a distraction away from the spotlight that's on them around VBS, around a number of internal problems that they're facing as a political party, as well as some serious questions around who funds them and how they're able to manage their lifestyles and their operations. And so these, by targeting Pravin Gordhan and former presidents, it becomes a very handy distraction from the fingers that are pointing at you. So this is a gimmick. It doesn't serve the people of South Africa. It doesn't serve our democracy when a parliament is disrupted. Bear in mind, there are a huge number of international and local investors watching tonight very, very carefully. For many of them, this is last chance saloon. They're going to be looking to see the bold reforms. They're going to be looking to see a government and a parliament that's serious about getting us out of the low growth, high debt trajectory and onto a new path of prosperity. Disruptions are going to play very, very badly for them, and it may well be the catalyst for people taking the investments and putting them in another country where they feel more secure that this is a country that's serious about tackling its internal problems.
Well, thank you so much, DA Leader John Steenhuisen, as we continue to roll it over, getting the various political parties represented in our parliament. Will be congregating in the house behind me to give us their views on their expectations for SONA 2020. And with me right now from the UDM is Ngabayomzi Kwangwa. Thanks for coming through. So what are your expectations tonight?
Well, the first thing that the president needs to address as far as we're concerned is the question that has to do with the governance at SOEs. We have to know once and for all whether or not they intend to introduce a private equity partner when it comes to SAA rather. The disbanding of Eskom is also important given the load shedding that has been happening in the country, and the introduction of private role players in that sector, because there's no way that you can power up the economy without addressing the energy constraints that face the country. But more importantly, that also affects obviously the energy constraints, the low growth, affects the ability of government to be able to create jobs for young people in particular, because unemployment among young people would be to about 70%, for an example. You have your expanded definition of 40% unemployment, but not only that, up until government is able to nip in the bud all the governance issues, hold to account the people who have actually misappropriate state resources that were supposed to be used for development, where people who have been implicated in the state capture inquiry are charged criminally for the actions they've done, none of what they've said so far would actually carry any weight.
So you speak of unemployment, you speak about the trouble with the SOEs, and again, it's almost as if we're regurgitating these year in, year out, perhaps with a little more intensity at the end. But where does the solution lie? What are the limitations at this stage to actually finding meaningful solutions to these problems, do you believe?
Well, you see, one of the first things we'll have to do as political leaders is stop engaging in ideological niceties and do what is pragmatic and practical. The solutions to the problems that face South Africa aren't going to be found in one political party. I think the solutions would have to come from a multi-stakeholder engagement. Even here in Parliament, where we can say what would be the most practical way of dealing with the challenges. For example, as a Social Democratic Party, I've already indicated this, as a Social Democratic Party of the UDM, we're anti-privatization. But should we allow SAA to continue taking money that should be used for development? The answer is an emphatic no. So it means already we're considering what is practical. The other issue here is that it needs leadership. It needs tough decisions to be made on the part of government, political leadership, but all stakeholders going. Because remember, in 2 months' time, we're expecting a Moody's ratings agency review. And they need to see that by the time we get to that process, all the tough decisions have been made by the country, starting with the president during the SONA, but also going to the budget speech later on this month.
Well, I'm sure we'll catch up with you again later on tonight after that speech to hear whether it actually met your expectations. But thanks so much for speaking to us, the UDM's Ngabayomzi Kwankwa. And joining us now from the IFP is Naren Singh. Thanks so much for stopping by. And I've been asking everybody about their expectations, but rather tell me, if you were to deliver the State of the Nation address, what would be your top priority?
Well, I won't say what I said last year or in the last State of the Nation address. I think the country knows, the nation knows exactly what state the nation is in. It's in a very perilous state. What we want to hear, and what I would do if I'm the president, is talk about implementable plans that will take the country forward. Plans that would ensure there's no fear or favor. At the moment, I feel that as the president of the country, President Ramaphosa is hamstrung, not because by what needs to be done and we don't have resources, but hamstrung by his own political party. And that's a big challenge for us. When we hear conflicting remarks and opinions on how we should deal with state-owned enterprises, how we should deal with SAA, the judiciary, I mean, the attack on the judiciary recently is something that we cannot accept. You know, it doesn't fit our democratic order and the order that Nelson Mandela and others fought for, that people attack the judiciary on the basis of race and prejudice. So we would like President Ramaphosa to be firm, to be bold, to say things that would actually take us forward, and not worry about what certain people within his own political party think about what he says. And I think that's going to help this nation get better, help the economy grow.
So those firm, bold things, let's narrow it down. If we're talking SOEs, if we're talking the land question, what would you love to hear him say?
SOEs, we've been saying for a long time, but we want him to say, let's privatize or semi-privatize SOEs. We had opportunities in the past, for example, with South African Airways. We had opportunities in the past to ensure that the plant at Eskom are refurbished. Those opportunities were lost to us. And we need now business-minded people to come in and run government like profit and loss. And I think President Ramaphosa is best suited at this moment in time to be able to do that, because he understands business. And I think if he ran this government as his own businesses, which has been very successful at, things would change in this country. But he just needs to take these bold steps and move forward.
And the land question?
The land question, well, we as the IFP, we feel that there's no need for amendment to the Constitution. Expropriation is something that has to be done. We have to expropriate land for purposes of public good, but expropriation without compensation is not something we would support. It's creating a lot of tension, not only within the country, but outside. Investors are also concerned about this. And I think President Ramaphosa must just be bold about this and say, well, my conference did take a resolution. We're going to an NGC in June. Let us reconsider whether this step or this move that we took is something that is going to actually inspire confidence in local investors and international investors.
Well, Well, thank you so much, Naran Singh, and the choir behind me. Of course, melodic sounds streaming through all morning. And we are, of course, going to bring you more from the political parties as we move through this morning. Hearing their views, just finding out from them exactly what their expectations are for SONA 2020. And when we started this broadcast, the skies were clear. The sun was peeking through. And as I speak to you right now, the cloud cover seemed to have draped Table Mountain yet again, and we are going to move on as we actually get a reaction from the political parties as we move along this morning. The Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, as I move over to my left, also here in Parliament representing them. Firstly, let me just get clarity here on Mzwanele Nyoncho, who is from the PAC, and of course giving us their view. And with the PAC, I want to start with the land question, because when we speak about, the Pan-Africanist Congress, that has always been your rallying cry, amongst other things, over and above the Pan-Africanist sentiment. So talk to us about your expectations in that regard from SONA.
We expect the president to tell us when is he going to start the land redistribution. And in the past two SONAs, he has been telling us here that the land question is going to be addressed, in particular in the 6th Parliament. So we expect him to tell us when and how, and we can't wait to see that, because that is the only reason why we are here. The core business is the land question. The item of conflict was the land. So we want them to tell us when are they going to give the land back to its rightful owners, the Africans.
And how would you like to see that land given back?
We would like to see it given back to the Africans through the land restoration, land repossession. Our land was dispossessed from us through the barrel of a gun. And we are saying that this is through the Act of Parliament. The land must be repossessed and restored to the Africans, because remember, land has also got something to do with dignity. Once the land is restored to our comrades, to the Africans, then the dignity of the Africans is back. So we want it to be returned to Africans without any compensation, because we don't owe anyone. You can't compensate a thief. The land was stolen, it was taken by force, and now it must be given to its owners.
Very interesting position, in total contrast to what I've just heard from the IFP. But of course, apart from the land question, what else are you expecting the president to pronounce on, and how?
We also expect him to tell us when is he going to solve the issue of SOEs. Remember, as things stand, the country is on autopilot. You don't even know what is happening. You don't even know what is happening in all the SOEs, PRASA, ESCOM, SAA, and you could tell that there is a problem. The sender cannot hold, if there is any sender anyway. So we expect him to tell us the clear position of government. We don't need a clever CEO. We just need a policy that is clear from government that is going to solve our SOEs. Also, we expect him, for the first time, we've been raising this issue, to tell us when is he going to release our cadres who are still languishing in South African jails for fighting for liberation. And also, because this year the Robben Island has declared this year as the year of Sobukwe, we really expect the president to give Sobukwe the respect he deserves. Sobukwe deserves better, and we hope the president will say something about Sobukwe, who must be treated like all other presidents, because he's the reason why today we are here. He's the only one who changed the politics of this country. Sobukwe deserves better.
Well, thank you so much. Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, Mr. Mzwanele Nyoncho, they're speaking to us. And of course, we'll catch up with all of them again later after the State of the Nation address. Let's move on to the economic freedom fighters. Ms. Delisiwe Ngwenya, thanks for coming through. So, you've threatened to disrupt the proceedings this evening. Is it a threat, or is it a reality waiting to happen?
It's a promise. We will disrupt the SONA, because we are demanding that Cyril Ramaphosa fires Pravin Gordhan. Pravin Gordhan, as the Minister of Public Enterprises, has plunged this country into total darkness. Literally, and even in the economy. We have 50% of the youth that is unemployed now, and Pravin Gordhan is taking care and protecting the interest of the big businesses at the expense of the black poor people who are marginalized in this country. We are demanding that Pravin Gordhan must go so that we can be able to get rid of people like Stephen Koshev of the Investec, who is now in the middle of the decision-making process in this country. He has taken over because Pravin Gordhan has orchestrated that they come in. They are trying to make sure that our SOEs, especially Eskom, is seen as being failing so that they are going to privatize it. He has interest. He wants to bring his close people who are in the renewable energy to come and take over, especially her daughter. We know her daughter has interest in Hulisani Limited. We are not going to allow that. So we want Pravin Gordhan to go. What we are expecting for Cyril Ramaphosa today is to tell us that he has fired Pravin Gordhan.
So where does this stop? Because Pravin Gordhan today, who else tomorrow? Is this not a personal matter that the EFF is now plunging center stage for the rest of the nation?
It's not personal at all. It is personal maybe in a sense that we are fighting for our people who are still seen to be suffering, but it's not about Pravin Gordhan. If it was any minister in the public enterprises doing exactly what Pravin Gordhan is doing, we will be calling for his removal. So we are standing in that point that Pravin Gordhan must go. He must be replaced with a minister who will bring light into this country, in the houses of the poor people and in the lives of the poor people.
So with regard to the rest of the speech, what is the EFF expecting?
We are only expecting him to tell us that he's fired Pravin Gordhan, because otherwise he's been saying all these things. This is his third SONA, and he's been saying the same thing over and over, and nothing is happening. So for this country to be saved, Pravin Gordhan must go. That is the only thing we want to hear as the EFF.
But surely, are you then saying that all of South Africa's problems, all of the challenges that we face right now as a nation can actually be reduced to one person, Pravin Gordhan?
It is reduced. You remember, our problems in this country is economical, and Pravin Gordhan is in the center. He is trying to make sure that he's taking over our SOEs. SAA is in trouble. Eskom, Dinel, he is planning to take over and make sure that the economy is in the hands of the minority. And without economical freedom, then we do not have a country. Hence, we are saying this is the center of our problems. We get economical freedom, everything is sorted in this country.
And finally, what do you say to the South Africans who say that you disrupting the State of the Nation address that they have every right to listen to, getting a progress report from the president, that they actually feel that you are holding the entire country to ransom? What do you say to those South Africans?
Progress report. What progress? What is he going to report progress on? Because things are still the same. They are getting worse. We are fighting a battle of economical freedom, and we are not going to apologize for that. And I know South Africans want that as well. We know that South Africans want Cyril Ramaphosa to finally listen to them and hear their cry. We cannot tolerate this anymore.
Well, Delisiwe Ngwenya from the Economic Freedom Fighters, and they are saying that disruption at the National Assembly during State of the Nation Address 2020 is a promise. It's not a threat. It is a promise tonight. So that is what will happen. We also heard from the Speaker of Parliament what we can expect and how they will deal with this. And from the other parties that we have engaged so far, their particular predictions and also wish lists for President Cyril Ramaphosa to address tonight. And with those melodic sounds behind me of the parliamentary choir, I hand you back to studio.